We are counting down the 23 biggest T-Rex myths that movies, museums, and textbooks got completely wrong. From arms no one took seriously to senses sharper than any monster flick ever dared show, this ranking shreds every last childhood illusion, revealing a stranger, deadlier predator at every turn. Which jaw-dropping lie tops the list, and which one is about to rewrite everything you thought you knew? Let us start with number 23. Hollywood loved to mock those stubby T-Rex arms. Dangling, useless, comic relief for a monster that couldn't even scratch its own nose. But computed tomography scans and finite element simulations have torched that punchline. Each T-Rex arm ended in a pair of claws powered by muscle attachments, mapped directly from fossilized humerus scars. When researchers at the University of Kansas ran the numbers, the grip force topped 3,000 pounds per square inch, enough to crush bone, not just egos. Healed fractures in multiple specimens, Sue included, show those arms were battered and broken, then repaired, not by accident but by violent use. These weren't vestigial leftovers. They were close-range weapons, capable of holding thrashing prey or gouging rivals in a fight. The myth of the useless T-Rex arm dies here, buried under a mountain of scarred bone and hard data. Next time you see a T-Rex waving its arms around, remember, it's not waving, it's warning. Forget the iconic T-Rex roar. Hollywood's favorite monster never sounded like a jungle cat with a megaphone. Paleontologists have dissected the fossilized evidence and found no trace of the vocal cords needed for those cinematic shrieks. Instead, T-Rex's throat anatomy points to a very different soundtrack. A deep, seismic rumble, the kind of infrasound that travels through the ground and rattles your bones before you even see what's coming. Studies of the T-Rex larynx and comparisons with living relatives, crocodilians and birds, reveal a setup built for subsonic communication, not high-pitched theatrics. The absence of a syrinx, the organ birds use to chirp and sing, rules out anything remotely melodic. Instead, think of an elephant's low-frequency call, a sound that can cross miles and still shake the air. The next time a movie gives T-Rex a lion's roar, remember, the real king of dinosaurs whispered in a register that could stop your heart. The loner T-Rex is a Hollywood favorite, one giant predator stomping across the landscape, hunting in splendid isolation. But the rock record says otherwise. At Tumbler Ridge in British Columbia, paleontologists uncovered a set of parallel Tyrannosaurid tracks. 3 massive animals side by side, each stride nearly identical in length and depth. The sediment layers show these prints were made at the same time, not by chance, but in synchrony. That is not a solitary wanderer. It is a coordinated group, moving with purpose. The stride patterns match up. The spacing is too precise for coincidence. Juvenile and adult prints mingle, suggesting a family on the hunt or a pack in motion. These are not just random footprints in the mud. They are a fossilized snapshot of social behavior. Next time someone tells you T-Rex hunted alone, remind them, even the king of the dinosaurs did not always go solo. Sometimes it brought backup. That old playground taunt, T-Rex had tiny, useless eyes, does not survive a single glance at the fossil record. Each T-Rex eye socket measured roughly 13 centimeters across, big enough to swallow a grapefruit whole. Scleral ring analysis and orbital geometry put its eyeballs among the largest of any land predator, dead or alive. But size was not the whole story. The forward-facing placement gave T-Rex a field of vision that made depth perception its secret weapon. Retinal reconstructions suggest visual acuity on par with modern eagles, meaning T-Rex could spot a moving target from hundreds of meters away, even in low light. Forget the myth of a lumbering brute squinting through the fog. This was a predator that saw the world in razor-sharp detail. If you ever found yourself in its sights, hiding in the bushes would not help. The king of dinosaurs did not just see you. It probably counted your eyelashes. For decades, textbooks and movies painted T-Rex as a lumbering idiot, just a giant mouth on autopilot. But when paleontologists fired up the CT scanner and peered into those fossil skulls, the story changed fast. Endocast scans revealed a brain volume of 350 to 400 cubic centimeters, and more importantly, a brain plan that looked suspiciously bird-like. The encephalization quotient, or EQ, for T-Rex clocks in at 2.0 to 2.4, double or even triple what you get in modern crocodiles. That is not genius, but it is light years ahead of the cold-blooded stereotype. The cerebrum, the part of the brain that handles learning and problem-solving, was enlarged and well-developed, hinting at real cognitive horsepower. And then there are the olfactory bulbs, giant, even by dinosaur standards, wired for a sense of smell that could put a bloodhound to shame. So the next time someone calls T-Rex a dumb lizard, remind them, the king had brains to match the brawn, and the fossils do not lie. Forget the Jurassic Park chase scenes. T-Rex was not clocking 60 miles per hour, no matter how many jeeps it wanted to outrun. When biomechanists at Manchester and Iowa State fed a T-Rex skeleton into multi-body dynamic models, the numbers hit a wall. At 7 tons, bone stress on the femur at high speed would have snapped it like a breadstick. The most generous computer simulations cap adult T-Rex at 25 to 30 miles per hour, and even that is pushing the limits of what its legs could handle before catastrophic failure. Finite element analysis of fossilized femurs shows that running at cheetah speed would have turned the king into a fossil before its time. Trackway evidence backs this up. Stride lengths match a power walk, not a sprint. So if you picture T-Rex as a prehistoric drag racer, trade that fantasy for a lumbering, muscle-bound heavyweight that could accelerate fast, but never outrun its own physics. The scaly, drab-skinned T-Rex of museum halls and movie posters is a relic of the past, literally. Fossilized skin impressions from close relatives, such as Tyrannosaurus, discovered in China in 2012, show a thick coat of filamentous feathers running down the body of a 9-meter-long Tyrannosaur. These were not dainty wisps, but shaggy, insulating plumes that kept blood warm in chilly, late Cretaceous climates. Juvenile T-Rex fossils hint at similar downy coverings, with skin textures and follicle pits mapped along the arms and tail. Even the patchwork of scales and bare skin on adult T-Rexes tells a story. Feathers likely faded with age, but never vanished entirely. Phylogenetic bracketing, comparing T-Rex to both its feathery cousins and modern birds, locks in this evolutionary link. Forget the leathery monster you grew up with. The real T-Rex was part reptile, part bird, and at least part feather duster. Hollywood's Lizard King just got plucked. Museum plaques and old textbooks love to claim T-Rex vanished long before the sky fell, like it just shuffled off stage before the main event. But the rocks tell a different story. Radiometric dating of the Hell Creek Formation pins T-Rex fossils right up against the Cretaceous-Paleogene boundary, within 300,000 years of the infamous impact. Magnetostratigraphy, the science of reading ancient magnetic reversals in rock, confirms these bones sit in the very last slices of the Maastrichtian, the final act of the dinosaur era. No mysterious early exit, no slow fade. T-Rex adapted to cooling climates and shifting food webs, hanging on until the curtain dropped. The last fossilized teeth and bones are entombed in layers just centimeters below the iridium-rich clay left by the asteroid. There is no gap, no missing millions. When the world ended 66 million years ago, T-Rex was still there, alive, struggling, and finally gone in the blast with everything else. The myth of the deadbeat dinosaur parent falls apart the moment you crack open a T-Rex bone bed. In Montana's Hell Creek Formation, paleontologists have unearthed tangled masses of bones, adults and juveniles, side by side, layered in ancient floodplain mud. These are not random piles. The sediment tells a story of families living and dying together. Even more damning for the mythmakers, nesting area sediments packed with the remains of young and old, plus eggshell fragments, hint at repeated use and long-term care. Taphonomic studies reveal bite marks on juvenile bones that match adult T-Rex teeth, likely the result of feeding lessons gone wrong or teaching moments that turned rough and tumble. Some sites show clusters of juveniles with healed injuries, suggesting survival past clumsy mistakes, hardly the fate of abandoned hatchlings. The evidence stacks up. T-Rex did not just lay eggs and walk away. It stuck around, raised its young, and passed down the skills of the hunt. Turns out, the king of dinosaurs also had a soft spot for its own brood. Walk through any dinosaur hall and you will spot it. One T-Rex labeled male, another female, usually based on a beefier pelvis or a slightly different skull. But when paleontologists ran the numbers, measuring hundreds of bones, plotting every pelvic curve and cranial ridge, the results were a statistical mess. The size ranges overlap so much that the supposed female pelvis could just as easily belong to a large male, and the classic crests or bumps are as reliable as reading tea leaves. Morphometric studies of T-Rex skeletons show no consistent features to separate the sexes, not in the hips, not in the skull, not even in the mighty femur. Even Sue, the Field Museum's star fossil, has been labeled both male and female over the years. In life, T-Rexes would have recognized each other by scent, sound, or behavior, not by a sign on their ribcage. The next time a museum claims to know a dinosaur's gender by its bones, remember, the fossil record keeps its secrets. The myth of the T-Rex's wimpy grip dies the moment you put its foot to the test, literally. In lab simulations, paleontologists took casts of T-Rex claws, mounted them in hydraulic presses, and drove them into fresh bovine bone. The result? More than 1,200 pounds of force were needed to shatter the bone, with the claw tip punching through like a railroad spike. Keratin modeling shows the claw's sheath wasn't just for show. It focused the pressure into a lethal point, leaving puncture marks that match fossilized prey bones almost perfectly. Morphology studies reveal deep gouges and spiral fractures, evidence of prey getting pinned and torn apart, not just bitten. Forget the idea of a T-Rex flailing helplessly at dinner. Those feet and claws were precision tools for subduing victims, snapping limbs, and anchoring the kill. If you thought the arms were scary, wait until you see what the feet could do. Next time someone jokes about T-Rex grip strength, just hand them a cowbone and a stopwatch. The lazy ambush predator myth collapses under the weight of physics and muscle. Energy foraging models pioneered by Farlow and colleagues mapped out what it actually took to fuel a 7-ton carnivore. Turns out, plopping down in the weeds and hoping dinner wandered by was a losing strategy. T-Rex's massive muscles burned through calories too fast for ambush to make sense as a daily plan. Instead, the numbers favor strategic stalking, slow, steady tracking, punctuated by short, explosive bursts. This was not a couch potato with teeth. It was a locomotive, built for efficiency at walking speeds, saving its real power for moments that mattered. Biomechanical reconstructions show that this approach maximized return on investment. Every calorie spent on a burst of acceleration paid off with a higher chance of landing a kill. If you picture T-Rex napping all day, think again. The king of dinosaurs was an active hunter, not a prehistoric speed bump waiting for leftovers. T-Rex teeth weren't built for display. They were engineered for destruction. Digital skull scans and finite element stress models have pinned adult bite force at a staggering 18,000 to 34,000 newtons. That's not just a big number. It's the difference between leaving tooth marks and turning bone to splinters. Fossil teeth show the scars of this violence. Spalled tips, stress fractures, and wear patterns that match the pressure zones mapped by computer models. Each tooth was a thick, D-shaped stake, designed to resist snapping even when crunching through the armored frill of a Triceratops. Microscopic analysis of prey fossils reveals arcs of deep punctures and explosive fractures, perfectly matching the predicted force maps. Juvenile T-Rexes could already bite harder than a modern hyena, but adults took it to a level that makes even crocodiles look like amateurs. No wonder T-Rex coprolites are packed with pulverized bone. When the king bit down, the myth of fragile teeth shattered along with everything else in its jaws. The old playground legend says T-Rex couldn't see you if you stood still, a monster with vision worse than a security camera from the 90s. But the fossil evidence tells a sharper story. T-Rex's skull wasn't just big for show. The orbits were angled forward, giving it a binocular field of about 55 to 60 degrees. That's not lizard vision, that's raptor vision in every sense of the word. Modern eagles, the undisputed champions of predatory eyesight, have similar overlap, letting them judge distance with pinpoint accuracy when hunting. Orbital orientation metrics from T-Rex skulls match these birds almost exactly. With both eyes locked on a target, T-Rex could track movement and depth in 3 dimensions. No more guessing games, no more hiding behind a bush and hoping for the best. If you tried to freeze in its line of sight, you would only make its job easier. The king of dinosaurs didn't chase ghosts. It hunted with the precision of a sniper, not the guesswork of a stormtrooper. The Godzilla pose, T-Rex towering upright, tail dragging like a third leg, belongs in the cinematic graveyard. Real T-Rex anatomy tells a different story. 3-dimensional skeletal reconstructions, built bone by fossilized bone, reveal a predator engineered for balance, not bravado. The spine and tail locked into a stiff, horizontal line, with vertebrae shaped to keep the trunk parallel to the ground. Center of mass calculations, run through digital models, land the weight forward of the hips, right where a bird's would be. But unlike a lumbering lizard, T-Rex wielded its tail as a counterweight, not a crutch. Each segment of that tail, braced by interlocking tendons, acted like a suspension bridge cable, keeping the head and jaws poised for action. No tail dragging, no Godzilla swagger. Just a biomechanical marvel, every step a balancing act. Next time you see a T-Rex standing bolt upright, remember, the real king walked with the poise of a predatory ballerina, not the clumsy stomp of a movie monster. The running joke says T-Rex was all teeth and no legs. A top-heavy disaster just waiting to tip over. But the fossil record does not laugh. CT scans of T-Rex femurs reveal bones so dense and thick-walled, it puts modern elephants to shame. Cross-section geometry and robusticity indices show a leg engineered for punishment, not collapse. Each hind limb could absorb more than 6 tons of force per leg without buckling, handling the full mass of a charging adult in mid-stride. The fatigue strength of these bones rivals steel beams, built to endure thousands of steps and sudden stops without shattering. Far from being a wobbly disaster, T-Rex stood on a pair of load-bearing columns that powered its every move. The next time someone cracks wise about chicken legs, remind them, these legs could have squashed a car flat and kept walking. The king's throne was not just its jaws, it was the unbreakable foundation beneath them. The inside of a T-Rex skull looks less like a blunt instrument and more like a fighter jet cockpit. Peer into the fossilized brain case and you'll find the vestibular canals, those delicate, looping tubes in the inner ear, wound with the same complexity seen in today's most agile birds of prey. These aren't just anatomical leftovers, they're the hardware for balance, head tracking, and lightning-fast coordination. CT scans show that T-Rex's semicircular canals rival those of hawks and owls, not alligators. That means every step, every turn, every lunge was calibrated by a sensory motor system tuned for pursuit, not plodding. Trackway evidence backs it up. The footprints show tight cornering and sudden stops, moves that would leave a lumbering brute face down in the mud. This wasn't a creature guessing its way through the underbrush. It was a predator with the neural wiring to plan, adapt, and outmaneuver anything unlucky enough to catch its binocular gaze. Dumb lizard? Please, this was a problem solver on 2 legs. The classic T-Rex grin, rows of naked, saber-sized teeth jutting from a crocodile smile, has been the mascot of every dinosaur lunchbox and movie poster for decades. But the fossil record tells a different story, and it is about as flattering as a mugshot. Recent research into tooth enamel and jaw anatomy points to something most people never picture: lips. Not the pouty kind, but a band of scaly muscular tissue covering those famous teeth when the mouth was closed. Enamel hydration studies show that exposed teeth, like a crocodile's, dry out and wear down fast. Yet T-Rex teeth display wear patterns more like those of modern lizards and birds, animals whose teeth are protected by lips. CT scans of jaw bones reveal foramina, tiny holes for blood vessels and nerves, suggesting the presence of extra oral tissue, not bare bone. The Jurassic Park grin? Pure fantasy. The real T-Rex kept its dental arsenal tucked away, lips sealed, ready to unleash only when it was time to eat. So much for the eternal snarl. Your childhood lunchbox just lost its bite. Scattered bones and shattered myths. T-Rex wasn't the lone terror of the ancient plains. In the Badlands of Montana and Alberta, paleontologists have uncovered kill sites that read like a crime scene report. Multiple adult T-Rex skeletons, sometimes with juveniles mixed in, cluster around the remains of the same hadrosaur or ceratopsian prey. The age structure of these assemblages reads like a family roster: old, young, and in between, all tangled in the same prehistoric disaster. Taphonomic bone mapping, the forensic art of reading death from the dirt, reveals bite marks and feeding traces that overlap, not from a single animal, but from several, all working the carcass at once. These are not random gatherings of hungry loners. The sediment layers and bone positions suggest a coordinated takedown, not a scavenger free-for-all. Far from being solitary, T-Rex shows every sign of a social predator, one that hunted, fed, and maybe even taught its young in groups. The myth of the antisocial king is as dead as the bones beneath our feet. Carrion-only T-Rex? That myth is about to get fossilized. In the Hell Creek Formation, paleontologists uncovered a hadrosaur vertebra with a T-Rex tooth jammed deep into the bone. Here is the kicker. The bone did not just break and stay broken. It healed around the tooth, growing new tissue over the wound. That means the prey survived the initial attack, long enough for its body to start repairing itself. No scavenger on Earth leaves its teeth behind in a living animal. Only a live, kicking, very unlucky hadrosaur gets a souvenir like that. Pathology studies map the regrowth, showing clear signs of healing, not post-mortem decay. Embedded tooth, living prey, healed bone. It is a slam dunk. T-Rex was not waiting for leftovers. It was out there sinking its teeth into anything that moved. And sometimes, the evidence bit back. Next time someone calls T-Rex a lazy scavenger, just point them to the fossil record. The king hunted. Case closed. Try shoving a watermelon into your mouth without using your hands. T-Rex did the prehistoric version every time it ate. The old myth says that massive skull was all for show, and the jaws barely opened wide enough to nip at leftovers. Reality? Mandibular joint modeling and muscle vector analysis say otherwise. The lower jaw could swing open to an eye-watering 80-degree angle, more than enough to swallow entire hunks of hadrosaur thigh or rip a triceratops limb clean off. This wasn't a dainty nibbler, it was a living trash compactor. The secret sits at the back of the jaw, where a ball and socket joint, like the hinge on a snake's mouth, but on steroids, let the whole lower jaw drop down and forward. Massive adductor muscles, mapped from fossil scars, powered the gape and then snapped the jaws shut with bone-crushing force. Forget the idea of T-Rex gingerly picking at scraps. This mouth was built for bulk loading, not table manners. The next time someone tells you T-Rex couldn't open wide, just show them the fossil record, and maybe a watermelon for scale. The story of T-Rex's extinction is not a Hollywood instant. It was not 1 minute thundering across Cretaceous plains, and the next vaporized in a cosmic flash. Core samples and isotope curves from the Hell Creek Formation reveal a world already unraveling long before the meteor hit. A slow, grinding decline. Stable oxygen isotopes from ancient shells and bones chart a cooling trend, with temperatures dropping by as much as 5 degrees Celsius in the last million years of the Cretaceous. Carbon isotope swings signal a carbon cycle in chaos, likely driven by massive volcanic eruptions halfway around the world. Forests thinned, pollen records show flowering plants giving way to tough, drought-resistant flora, and charcoal deposits point to wildfires sweeping stressed landscapes. Dinosaur diversity curves, built from thousands of fossil finds, show a steep slide in species richness. Up to half of known vertebrate diversity lost in that final million years. Tyrannosaurid fossils grow rarer across North America. Juvenile bones outnumber adults in the last bone beds, hinting at populations already under strain. Food webs frayed as plant eaters dwindled, leaving predators scrambling for every scrap. By the time the asteroid slammed into what is now the Yucatan, the world was not teeming with healthy dinosaurs. It was limping, battered by climate swings and ecological collapse. The impact did not start the extinction. It finished a process already underway. The real tragedy is not just the suddenness of the end, but the slow decline that set the stage. The king died in the blast, but it was already fighting a losing war against a world that had begun to turn cold. The final myth is the biggest. T-Rex as the undefeated champion, the apex predator to end all apex predators. But paleontology does not do fairy tales. In the rivers and deltas of ancient North Africa, Spinosaurus reigned supreme, longer than T-Rex by a head, with a crocodile snout and a body built for swimming. Spinosaurus stretched over 50 feet, outclassing T-Rex in length and beating it at its own game in the water. The fossil record is clear. Spinosaurus bones are found in what was once a vast, fish-rich floodplain. Its conical teeth, paddle-like feet, and high sail-backed body point to an aquatic ambush hunter, more at home in the shallows than on dry land. T-Rex would not have lasted 5 minutes in Spinosaurus's turf. Then there is Giganotosaurus, stalking the forests of Cretaceous South America. Nearly matching T-Rex in mass, Giganotosaurus measured up to 43 feet long and weighed 8 tons. Its skull was narrower, its teeth blade-like, perfect for slicing through the armor of giant sauropods. While T-Rex was the bone crusher of North America, Giganotosaurus was the top terrestrial predator in its own domain, and there is no evidence the two ever crossed paths. Each ruled a different kingdom, shaped by the prey and the landscape around them. T-Rex was king, but only in its own backyard. Its dominance was absolute, until you left the continent or swapped the plains for a river delta. The fossil record is a patchwork of local tyrants, each one the apex of its own world. In the end, the myth of the one true dinosaur overlord falls apart under the weight of ancient geography and evolutionary arms races. The real story is not about a single champion, but about a world of monsters, each one a legend in its own right. So yes, T-Rex was an apex predator, just not the only one. The throne was crowded, and the crown changed shape with every continent. Across all 23 entries, this countdown has buried the Hollywood monster and unearthed the real T-Rex, a feathered, family-oriented, bone-crushing predator, deadlier and stranger than any movie myth. From the much-mocked arms, proven to generate 3,000 pounds per square inch of grip force, to the predator's infrasonic rumble and eagle-like vision, each myth fell to hard forensic evidence. The most shocking surprises? T-Rex hunted in packs, cared for its young, and boasted intelligence rivaling modern crocodilians. The pattern is clear. Nearly every pop culture image, from scaly, dim-witted loner to upright, roaring beast, crumbles under the weight of paleontological fact. Every item overturned a core misconception with measurable fossils, biomechanics, or trace evidence. In the end, T-Rex was not an invincible apex, but a complex, evolving animal shaped by its world, and sometimes outcompeted by rivals like Spinosaurus. The truth is, the real T-Rex is more alien and more awe-inspiring than fiction ever allowed.